Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
And I thought I would play this video, if I could do it, from Pamela Phillips said on how you blow a $100,000 sale as opposed to our George video. If I can get it up, just give me a sec. Just because I think that's pretty. She's a pretty. This is actually I saw this video on the weekend, so let me just pull it up.
Buy a pandemic Porsche.
Right.
I'm in Parks.
I actually know this lady pretty well. Let me just see if I can share it. 1 second.
By the way, hello, John. Hello, Barry. Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Actually, good afternoon your time, John. So
That's true.
I'm going to share.
Thanks for reminding me.
I'm going to try it. So this is a woman who's a sales trainer, and she's talking about losing a
Some people bought pandemic puppies. I decided to buy a pandemic Porsche. I'm in Park City, and there's 2 Porsche dealerships in town. There's one that's 45 minutes away, the other's 2 hours away. So I do what everybody does. I start out and I get on the website and I look at the different cars. I call the guy 45 minutes away. I said, hey, can you send me some information on these 3 cars that are in your lot? He says, oh, you got to come down and test drive it. I said, I'm not coming down. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Can you just send me the information? He's giving me all this crap and says I got to come in, so I don't. So then I call the second dealership. I get this guy, Sean. I said, hey, Sean, can you send me some information on these 3 cars? Well, he not only sends me all the information, then he says, why don't we get on a Zoom call and, we can design the exact car and color you want in case we don't have that in the shop. I thought, okay, because I was looking for white with beige interior, very unusual. So we go online and we're doing it together on a Zoom call, right? I put together all the options I want and everything, and he says, ooh, that's a tough combo, but I'm on it. 2 days later, he connects with me on LinkedIn, starts sharing my videos. So all of these multi-channels of communication, right? And then I kind of go dark because I'm not that intent on buying a car. I kid you not. A few days later, I get a video text to my phone of the exact car coming off the trailer, the car trailer, wrapped up like a present. And he starts videotaping it and he's like, oh, look at this, look at that. And he's like, if you want to come in today, we're serving chili. Down there and bought the car. But here's the lesson. Too many salespeople think about the sales process instead of the buying process. And today, customers don't buy linearly. It's not like the old days. We got to meet them where they are and use as many channels of communication as we can. That's what Sean did. I got this beautiful new car and I drove it through the lot. The guy that screwed up. You're laughing. It's true.
So I actually saw that video. That was recommended to us by Pamela Phillips. And I saw that video. I know her personally, actually. And I was really laughing about that because it's so true. It's that we sometimes can't get out of our own way. And that to me was really kind of surprising. But more importantly, it kind of plays to the whole Mercedes-Benz process, which is basically you've got to interact with people the way they want to be interacted with and be of service. People aren't coming in 8 times anymore. They're coming in 1, maybe 2 times tops. And in a lot of cases, they're doing their research remotely. They've been doing that for years, but now they're basically going to tell you, listen, I'm not coming in. I love you, but I'm not just coming in there to waste my time. And the reality is that's the reality, even if they're not telling you. So I agree with that 100%. And I congratulated her on the weekend on her Porsche purchase because I was kind of laughing because I'm a Porsche fan myself. It was just kind of funny.
I have to
Porsche,
say,
not Porsche.
Okay, Porsche.
Porsche. This video tells you the best of what's going on right now and the old days, and the worst of what's going on right now in the old days. The first person she contacted says, well, you gotta come down. That was the old days. The second person, hey, tell me what you need, which is the best of the new days, but service, best of the old days.
Yeah, and it was interesting because I started using a new piece of software. I'm by no means making money from it, just so you know. It's a piece of software called Dub, and it's really
you bought 300,000
interesting
shares.
really interesting. I did a test, as there's a free 7-day trial. What I noticed was when I replaced the vast majority of text in my emails with a video, the rates of open and interaction went off the charts. You know, people that I've been sending emails to in some cases for months who don't respond very well instantly responded. So what that tells you is that attention span of people, no matter what their age, is declining. But more importantly, you got to make it fun for people. And I think what we unfortunately don't do well in the car business, and I mean, Jeff and everyone else can feel free to chime in here, is we forget that really for customers, it's something they do every 1 to 5 years, sometimes every 7 to 10 years. And right now they don't want the hassle anymore. They just don't. Like, they got enough hassle in their life. I'm just going to go to the next slide because we've had George a number of times. Here's some books. And what I tried to do is really look for books that were about change. Because I think the rate of change in the business right now is accelerating. So there's one there on the EV revolution. There's one on the automotive and motor vehicle industry, global transformation. And there's one on the autonomous car, which I think after we get through this pain point on EVs, we're going to get into autonomous. So it's going to be a question of, okay, great. Now that we've kind of adapted to EVs, the next thing is going to be, like, can I buy a car that I don't have to drive? What does that look like? And, I think the constant, when I looked around the internet for a lot of different, for the show, was change and the acceleration of change. So something I've been saying for a long time is basically, you have to adapt to the customers you have, the customers in front of you, because there isn't any extra customers. So what are you doing to fight for those customers and provide levels of service that make you stand apart? But turn it over to you, Jeff.
Well, thank you. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Ian and Jeff Show 2. And being it's the beginning of the month, we always take a look at this, and rather than put many of our guests on, which volunteer their time, rather than put them on the spot on the month end, and if you're a supplier, that's the month when you got time. But if you're everybody else, you're going a little bit crazy. And in this particular case, it's beginning of March, and many manufacturers end today versus yesterday. So today's a great day to discuss various topics in the business. And as you can see, we started with this information from Mercedes. And my number one takeaway from that video was the box. But of course, before we get started, we have our disclaimer, which means that today is an open forum day. So the views of everybody here, not just guests, because everybody today is a guest, are theirs, and the story. So we're off the hook.
All righty.
So with the
Jeff and Friends show, let's open it up.
Yeah. So as I was saying, the box, it's very interesting. I love that Mercedes box. Pamela, I don't think you saw it, or Dave, but we ran a video from a lady from Mercedes-Benz. And the other thing I noticed, they delivered a new Mercedes to someone's house in a cardboard box. And it looked like the Amazon person dropped it off at the door, rang the doorbell, and ran away. And then they walked up, they used their thing, and they opened it. The one thing that we have to notice, and I think all of you will agree with this, the box was exactly the size of the car. Unlike Amazon, that gives you a box 27 times the size of your item. But the other thing I noticed too, which tells us a little bit more about the business that we're in, is Mercedes, which was traditionally the very, very formal brand. It was Germans. Germans are very formal in their way they do business, very precise. The lady sitting there in casual pants and casual shoes, very relaxed. And putting out to everybody there, Dub. Unlike about 10 years ago, Dub was wheels.
Yeah, it's not like Dub like music. It's Dub. I'll send the link. It's worth checking out.
But the question I want to put to everybody is: our business now becoming more casual, more relaxed, because we're in that wave of things and touchless and service, and is formalness important anymore? Anybody want to comment on that? Perhaps John?
Well, are you thinking in terms of apparel, like how we dress? Because, I've always suggested to people that I've worked with and dealerships that I manage is that we did dress well because we wanted to look like professionals. And, there is obviously a trend toward business casual, which is fine as long as you still look professional. What's interesting is a couple of years ago, I was in Newfoundland doing some business and I stayed at one of Harry Steele's hotels. And Harry said to me, we were having breakfast, and said, John, why is it I walk into some dealerships and the salespeople are dressed like ragamuffins? So I said, well, Harry, that's because I'm not running the dealerships. But the point I'm trying to make is there are impressions that we make, and sometimes we don't have to speak. It's a matter of someone taking a look at us. I mean, how many times have I gone into a showroom and sat my briefcase down and kind of looked at the cars while I'm waiting to see the dealer principal or the general manager? And you'd be amazed at how many people approached me, and yet there were salespeople standing around the showroom. But I guess because of the way that I was dressed versus the way that they were dressed, I appeared to be the one that was professional in the room.
It's a good point. Although I have to tell you, the term "dress for success" is a very important term. The biggest shock I ever had was when I joined, after years in the import world, I joined a Ford store, and the truck department was upstairs, because the place was up on a hill. Cars were downstairs. The car salespeople wearing suits, etc. First truck I ever met walks in with jeans and cowboy boots, and a guy from downtown Vancouver wearing a cowboy hat, and he was selling trucks.
Yeah.
And I have to say, everybody's definition of success is different.
I agree 100%.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the phrase that I've had success with is to dress for the transaction. And, if I'm doing a dealer visit, the first thing I'll do is go on to their employee pictures, see how they're dressed, and I will dress one notch higher. So if they're wearing ties, I will definitely wear a tie. If they're not wearing a tie in their picture, I will just dress one notch, not so much that it looks like I don't fit in, because I need to associate with them and they need to see me as a peer. But I can't show up in a golf shirt if everybody in their staff pictures is wearing a tie and a suit. And if the GM's got a puff in their jacket and a bow tie on, well, I really need to amp my game up, because that's the expectation that person has. And so, again, back to what John's saying, but I've just tweaked it a bit and said I'm dressing for the transaction. If I'm going to buy a gardening rake, I'm not wearing a bow tie and a pocket puff, and that's a different transaction. But if I'm going out to be professional, meet with the dealer principal, the GM, I need to be very purposely dressed and very purposely actioned as well. So I can't, if I'm doing a smaller center, I can't roll in like I'm the big city person and I know more than you and I'm smarter than you and all the rest of it. And it's just it's relevance, and you can't do that, like you said, working with trucks. Sometimes if you're dealing with a roofer and they're yelling and full of profanities throughout their day and whatever, you can't try to be someone completely different than that. You need to meet them there. You need to go for and stand with them while they have a cigarette out by the lamppost. Like, it's just their life, and you got to go there. And I just think that I think it's important.
I was in a dealership, I think it was in Montana, I think. I was working with a couple guys who were locals, and I think it was Montana. And I went in there and like, you know, yeah, if you were wearing a suit, they thought you were like working for, you know, the NSA or
Whose
they didn't,
funeral?
they didn't want to talk to you. They thought you were someone from the government. Like, what are you doing here? Who are you?
Men in black.
Yeah.
Yeah, they weren't, you know, they weren't real friendly to someone who wasn't somewhat casual, and emphasis on some very casual. So I agree with that 100%. You got to, you know, if you're in California most of the year, they're all wearing golf shirts because it's hot. Or if you're in Texas, except for this year, you know, they're not wearing suits as often, right? So.
Although, mind you, in California right now, I had a good laugh. I like to watch, we get an LA channel feed up here. And they do the roving reporter, and there they are out in I don't know, Rancho Cucamonga reporting on the whatever. And here it is this morning. Canadians would be standing there in shirt sleeves, and they've got a puffy jacket on, and it's 59 degrees, and they're talking about, well, you know, we're here, but they're shaking. It's so cold. So it is relevant.
Pamela, I was wondering what got your attention on that video. I mean, I know her quite well, and I commented on it as soon as she posted, but I was curious as to what your thoughts were.
Do you know what actually affected me the most on that is we've been locked down now for 1 year. We haven't been able to go anywhere. And my skill is connecting with people in person, and you can be in their office and you can see, oh, your kids are doing this and you love your dog and all those things. And that's how I always connected. And I've sort of lost that over this whole year. And you get into that slump and you can't really figure out how to get out of it. And when I watched that, I realized that I wasn't really adapting to the new sales process and the new way of connecting with people and making it fun, because I wasn't feeling like this is fun at all. You know, fleet cards and fuel and gas prices, all of that. How do you make it fun? I always made it fun when I was in front of the customer by looking at what's going on in their office and their world. And you can't see that from a screen where you can only see behind you, you know, their accolades and things like that. So what struck me was he made it fun. That Sean figured it out. He realized that doing the video and walking her through the Zoom process and creating the buzz was what was going to make this sale happen. And it's not always about the sale. It's, for me, it's about the fun and the thrill and the getting to what the customer really needs in the end and how can I help them. And the sale is just a bonus. And so when I saw her excitement of the car coming off and they're serving chili, and that's what it excuse my language, but it just blew my effing mind. I was like, oh my God, that's what I need to do. I have to create my sales process to be all about the customer again, not about me, because I was sort of turning inside and just couldn't really create anything fun.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because Marco, and I think we had him on the call, we had him on the sales show a while ago. He's now working with Mercedes, but he's working with Audi. And he did a post in the early days of COVID. I think he sold 45 cars. And then he got a bill from Rogers Wireless for his data, which was like, I have no idea. He said he used like 60 gigs of data or something. But he spent a lot of time basically videotaping and sharing conversations with customers using his mobile device, and really just, you know, engaging them and making it fun. And he did the video really to I think he posted on LinkedIn. It might be on his YouTube channel, I'm not sure. But it was really about, okay, yeah, it's possible, and here's how you do it. Now, obviously, you got to factor in your cell phone coverage, I guess. But the thing that was interesting was that he was, again, taking it to the customer where they're at. And I think that's something that even after COVID and after people are back out in force, people will still appreciate that because people are busy. I mean, the thing that I really liked about the Mercedes video, even though it was very dry, was it was like, how can we save the customers time, whether they're in China or India or North America or Europe, but more importantly, make it fun, engage with the customer, which is very difficult to do with an email.
Well, you know, it's very funny because we saw that video was dry, and as you guys know, people know, please excuse me, we like to have fun. And so Ian and I, we go through the videos and we try to find one that creates laughs. We could not find a video associated with Mercedes-Benz that was comical. It was very, 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 you know, traditionally dry. But, you know, I have to say, you bring up the comment about making it right. And it doesn't matter if we're in today's world of virtual world or the old days. I believe this Sean fella at this dealership would have made this special if that lady had walked in to see him there and came back to pick up her car another time. If that face-to-face or the video, it's the people that go the extra mile. And you can fail on video. You can fail dramatically, even if you're an expert. Anybody who watched the Golden Globes last night realized that these are people whose profession is broadcast, is video, is being in front of a camera, and nearly everybody there made all of us here in this call look like seasoned video professionals. It was so amateurish.
It was really bad.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when you saw people, the worst I hate to say was Catherine O'Hara when her husband tried to play "Oh Canada" in the background, and you could not. She was looking at him like, "Excuse me, but we're got 22 million people watching us."
Well, you might get a kick out of this. You know, now that of course, we're still in COVID. What's interesting is today I had the day booked to go up to the Valley here in Nova Scotia and set up a dealer on our performance management software. What was interesting, though, is over the weekend on Friday, our Dr. Strang said, you know what? People can't travel in or out of Halifax. So we did it all virtually this morning. It was all set up and things are running great. Had a great time doing it. Everyone's on board and we're just rocking. So you don't necessarily have to be there personally.
Yeah. And, you know, you mentioned that everything is relevant. What I saw in the news yesterday, you've had 3 cases or something in the last couple of days.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
On Sunday.
And in Ontario, it'd be a celebration. Anywhere, even Saskatchewan, it'd be a celebration, only have 3 cases. So
3 cases, let's close it down.
Well, it was actually 10 cases before that and 8 cases the day before. So we're up to 28. So put the brakes on.
Well, that's what New Zealand did too. So a question I have for everybody, maybe switching a little bit of gears here, is one of the shows we have a whole bunch of shows coming up, but one of them that's going to be coming up sometime in let's take a look here in March, later on this month, is the Good About the Car Industry. And we sit there and we talk, and almost every show we talk about is what are we doing wrong? Well, we're doing this wrong and we got to do this better. We're doing this wrong, we got to do this better. And golly gee, we don't handle leads, we don't handle this. And one of our shows, probably in October or November was, Ian, Stephen Granger from Recall Rabbit, in the the second coldest place in North America about 2 weeks ago, Austin, Texas. He came up and he said, you know what? He says, yeah, we got to stop complaining. So, you know, we're 2 weeks away from this show, but what good do you think is out there? Tell us some good stuff.
I actually am blown away by all the dealerships everywhere that under the radar donate to the food bank, or they see a kid on Facebook needed a bicycle, so they set him up with a bicycle, or help with donations at men's shelters and women's shelters, and it just totally goes unnoticed by anyone. And it's just the generous heart of the people who run the dealerships. And everybody thinks, oh, they're just in it for the money. No, I think it's other things. I believe, because, you know, running a dealership is like running a little city. You have this division and this division, and they just make it pleasant for their employees to help the community, and they make it possible. So I think that's one of the most lovely things about the dealership world.
I agree with you, Pamela. And I think one of the other things that the industry does so well and goes unnoticed again, and Dave brought this up, I don't know, a month or so ago, where he's got 19-year employees in his dealership, and they have built their entire life, their entire family budgets, everything around working for him and the wage that he pays them. And obviously they earn it, but you know, I spent 25 years in the industry. I didn't take a day of schooling before I got into it. I didn't even know that I was getting into the car business when I was getting into the car business. It was purely by accident. You know, I needed to do something. I didn't know what else I could do. I could talk to people. I was okay with it. And that turned into a 25-year career, and you know, quite successful. And it wasn't like, well, now you got to go away and get 6 years of education so you can come back and line the pencils up differently than you did when you left. It's just, no, it's, you come in, you work hard, and the industry will reward you very, very, very well. And you know, there's a lot of respect for 20-year employees and 17-year employees. And I think Dave was saying he had 19-year employees. So it's a big thing. And so a lot of industries don't allow people to build careers without going off and actually investing in themselves, getting the proper training and the proper education and all that stuff, and having a couple of letters behind your name and all that kind of stuff. For the car business, you can roll in. You arrived in Canada yesterday, and you can roll in, and if you can sell some cars, you're all the welcome. So I think we do really well in our industry for that.
Well, you know, the one of the most famous people, I think, in Canada that explains exactly what you said there, Barry, is the fella in Toronto that's the Raptor super fan. He's got what, 2 or 3 Hyundai stores,
something like that. Yeah.
And he literally got off the plane as an immigrant, very little English, and started selling cars.
Yeah.
I just want to know what he did, because I don't have any stores.
Worked hard for a long time, I'm sure.
Yeah, if he was prepared to take a risk on a Hyundai store.
Back when they sold ponies, he was like, I'm in.
Unfortunately, I remember that. And I remember when they got ponies, and they were selling like hotcakes. They
Exactly.
were.
95, selling like crazy.
Yeah.
Most of them went out at $9,000 full of all sorts of stuff, and they went nuts for a year. Then the Stellar came out.
You know, the crazy part is people joke about the pony and they give it a hard time, but honestly, if you think, I remember back in high school, a couple of kids had ponies, and the beatings that those things took, and like they were abused, and they would still keep rolling into school every day in those things. Like they get a bad rap, but they earned their stay in the stable.
But you know what they did? The pony was a brand new 10-year-old Corolla. It was identical. You open the hood of an 84 pony and you look at a 70 Corolla. You open, it's the same car. Probably the same design too. But
well, you know, my wife had one when we met, and we kept that car for a number of years. Eventually sold it to a friend of ours whose sister-in-law was in Central America, and his wife drove the vehicle from Ottawa down south, through Mexico, through the US, through Mexico, into Central America. And I'll have to give them a call to see if that thing is still running. But, you know, talk about basic technology, you know, points, plugs. It was, and that thing.
The only car you could drive through Mexico is no one would steal it, John.
Okay, so I got to share a story with you on that one. My in-laws were visiting us in Ottawa. We went downtown, well, to the Parliament buildings on July 1st, parked the pony a few blocks away. And I thought, wow, this is great because they had these white covers over the parking meters, just blank white covers. So we went off, gone for a few hours, came back, dragging my in-laws along, and we went to find the car, and there it wasn't. Don't know what happened. We ended up having to take the bus home. So I called the police department. I'd like to report a stolen car. Well, maybe it was towed. You'll have to call these people. I called the towing companies. No one knew where it was. Anyway, I called the police back. So I said to the policeman, I want to report this car stolen. He said, well, what kind of car is it? I said, it's a 1984 Hyundai Pony. And then I hear a little chuckle on the end. He said, Mr. Latka, you don't actually think someone would go out and steal a pony. So a little later on, I did track it down. It was towed. It was it was at a compound. They just had the wrong license number. Wow.
That's funny.
Well, you know, it's very funny though. You brought up when it went down very far south. If you go to the third world countries, it's not uncommon to find 25 and 30-year-old vehicles.
Absolutely. Look at Cuba.
Exactly. Well, Cuba, actually, you go to Cuba and everybody thinks it's just full of 1950s American cars. It is, but it's full of 2020 European cars.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, and we did an extensive trip to Peru, and Peru is keeping the old VW Bug alive. There is probably no doubt when you stop at a traffic light and there's 20 cars at a traffic light, 15 of them will be Volkswagen Beetles.
Wow.
And the old school ones, not the new ones. And that country alone, our guide was telling us, had prompted Volkswagen to relaunch the manufacturing of parts for that car, because it is just a car that they utilize. It's for them, it's not an old car. It's just what everybody has. It's easy to park. It's easy to drive. It's works at the altitudes, all the goofy things. But you know, out here it's like, hey, punch buggy, yeah, whatever. But down there it's like they're everywhere. My arm was quite bruised by my daughter when we first arrived.
Yeah. But you know, that's even in Mexico too, though. In Mexico, there's a ton of Beetles because they were building them there until 2 years ago.
Mm.
Yeah, and it's actually still a current model down there, and it's not an old, you know, can't find parts. It's like, no, it's, you want a fender, go get. Of course, there's a lot of
they
fixing.
went out of production 2 years ago there.
Yeah, it was fascinating.
Yeah, it definitely is. Hello, Mr. Jackson.
Morning. Sorry, I was listening and doing some stuff there, you know, like month end and doing all that stuff. You know, you guys don't know what you're talking about. I could only have dreamt of having a pony. The first car I bought was a Gremlin.
Whoa.
I think that's called a mic drop, Dave.
A pony? Wow, that would have been great.
Yeah. I remember taking in a Pacer on trade-in, and I had this was probably 20, oh my gosh, more than that, because look at the year it is, but it was one of those with the Navajo interior. And that was a big seller back in the day.
Show your age, Jeff. You could make a big sub in the back of a Pacer.
Yeah, width-wise.
I don't know if you remember those commercials.
No, don't remember those.
Yeah, if you're talking about interiors, I remember one time I was used car manager, and we had a trade-in come in, and everything was going good, and I go out to look at the trade, and I look at this thing, and it's a purple Taurus with a purple leather interior.
Wow.
And I look at this thing and I scratch my head and I'm like, who in the world am I going to sell this thing to? Like, it's virtually like there's nothing redeeming about it. It had good tires, but that was it. And so I'm scratching my head, and I go out and I sit with the customer, and I'm like, you know, your car's in pretty good shape, but I gotta say, it's gonna be really tough to retail. Like, what are you thinking it's worth? And having that conversation, right? And I said, you know, like, who are we gonna sell this car to that's got purple on purple? Like, and I said, you know, like the next owner would have to be colorblind. And he's like, I am colorblind.
Oh, gee.
You know, that's one of those cases where we open mouth, insert foot, right?
Oh yeah.
Purple on purple. Wow.
Oh yeah, that certainly is an interesting time, and actually it's something, and we all have second nature in this business. Is what's the word? What do you say? How do you say it to people? And how many times have we said something and afterwards just one of those Homer Simpson, oh, you know.
It didn't matter which tie I was wearing at that moment, Jeff.
No.
It was perfect. They loved it. You know, that reminds me too, when we had one of our lady shows, and I remember talking about a sales lady I had quite a while ago, and there's a woman and two children walking outside in the lot, and a little bit further away or near service is a man standing there. So this female salesperson walked out to the lady and her kids and said, hello, good afternoon. You're just waiting for your husband? And she got a 10-minute dressing down from this lady. A, I don't have a husband. B, I don't need a man to decide on a car. Who the hell are you? Da, 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 da. And good old Jeff had to come running out and smooth things over.
Well, you know, earlier, Jeff, you were talking about the fact that over the months we've been talking about, you know, some of the negative things that go on at dealerships. And I don't think that anyone has brought up things that may be negative in nature to be, you know, trashing dealers. I think it's kind of a point to bring some awareness to areas where we might be able to improve. And I can tell you that the majority of dealerships are always looking for ways where they can increase business or increase communications or just to make things better. And if you've got an idea and they're receptive, you can always sit down and come to terms. But the one thing about most dealerships is that they are open to improvement opportunities. At least that's been my experience over the decades that I've been around.
Very true, John. And I think anyone who's been to their very first performance group or dealer 20 group, and they get their composite for the very first time, and they look at that book and they're like, we're looking at all of these things. We're watching all of these numbers, and there's 26 pages of 30 lines to a page and broken down and all the stuff. And it's overwhelming just how many different indicators the car business looks at to watch for successes and opportunities. It's crazy.
Well, I remember too many times when
yeah, right.
There you are. Dave's got it. Dave's got the book.
there it is. But I remember when so many times in my junior days when the dealer principal or whomever would come back from a 20 group meeting, and there was a day-long meeting of the managers to tell us what we're doing wrong. And it was very interesting because up until not that long ago, it was, you know, it was the guys in the 20 group. There was 1 or 2 dealers from BC, 4 dealers from Alberta, 1 person from Ontario, and they all talked about the Alberta guys. And look at what they're doing here, and look at how well they're doing here, and everything else. As you see Dave squirming. And it was very interesting how the longest time was how great Alberta was. And how is it now, Dave?
Yeah.
KPIs. Forget the bottom line, KPIs.
You know what? I mean, you can, there's a bunch of different ways you can look at a dealer 20 meeting. I mean, I think they're very good. I think they're very informative, but I think you have to take what you can out of a dealer 20 meeting.
Absolutely.
Okay. I mean, you have to understand what works in Halifax doesn't work in Alberta, and what works in Alberta doesn't work in Halifax.
100%.
And if you think you're going to go to a dealer 20 and find some silver bullet, magic bullet, then you're there for the wrong reason. You know, it's more awareness of what is actually going on inside your own business that you're not aware of. You know, I mean, for me to try to aspire to have the average gross that this guy on the island does, I can't, you know, I mean, I have, so I don't know. I think the whole purpose of a dealer 20 meeting, all your managers and all your staff and everything else think you're going to a dealer 20 meeting to learn how to beat everybody up. But I think you go to a dealer 20 meeting to kind of beat yourself up.
Mm.
That's just my take. I don't know, you know.
I think it's true. Like if you sit there, Dave, and you say, okay, I'm making 20 points in my parts department, but the 8 other dealerships sitting around the table are high 30s and low 40s. Well, that's something that you can look at. If you can get to 40, fantastic. If you can't, because of your location and what you do, and you give tires away to get the business or whatever, you can say, okay, I see my 25% and I can't do much better. Then that's you've analyzed it, you've looked at it, and you've said, I agree with it or I don't agree with it. But at least you got to know what some of the other people were capable of. Right?
Absolutely. And you have to look at other things. Okay, so I'm making, you know, these guys are making 30 points, I'm making 20 points, but my customer pay RO is $20 higher than them. And you know, I mean, yeah. And that's the thing, you know, to come back and I remember years ago, I worked for a gentleman in Calgary, and his big thing was to sell accessories. And he put this bonus plan in place to sell accessories. Okay. And I was in the business office, and his whole thing was he paid me almost as much to sell a set of mud flaps as he did to sell a Pro Pack. So every Pro Pack that I sold included a set of mud flaps.
Right.
Right. So he was able to go back to the 20 group and go, look at my accessory sales. Aren't they great? Okay.
And Dave was able to go buy a dealership.
Sold a lot of mud flaps.
Yeah.
But you know, and so then the next meeting, it's like, well, geez, you got to get your gross up on your Pro Packs. You know, you're the lowest in the group. So then you come back and it was like, okay, we got to, okay, you know, like, I mean, sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees.
Yeah,
Exactly.
well, you know, what's funny too, and all the variables in that, because so many things depend on you, on what you're doing. Like you say, well, your grosses are lower on Pro Pack, are on mud flaps because I'm throwing them in. Some other people are saying, you know, my rent factor is too high. And then you look at one, because they own the dirt. And it's much easier to get the store to pay my mortgage than it is to pay my mortgage.
Really?
Yeah.
Ah,
Yep. Well, I worked for a dealer group that existed purely to justify the existence of their real estate. Until we got in there and said, wait a minute, you know, the manufacturer said, I've been telling you for years, your net's way lower than everybody else. And then we did a deep dive and we saw the fact that our rent factor was substantially higher than everybody else around us.
They have a name for that, actually.
Which?
Quebec. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
You can hear the crack of the bat from here, Dave. That was well done.
Then again, you know, this guy'd walk around and brag how the fact that he did, you know, everything did so well.
Can you rewind that and delete?
they can edit. They can edit.
Well, the guy at H. Greg is turning that on its head.
How many stores do they have now?
Oh, they got about, I think they got 40, I think almost. They got a bunch in the US. They open them all the time. But the key piece there is they're exporting Canadian used cars.
Mhm.
So I'm in the US, mostly in Florida. So it's kind of interesting.
There's a connection of mine too with Buds in Toronto,
Mhm.
And every week they run over 100 cars in Manheim, Flint, Michigan, or 100 vehicles because they take them all out of the Toronto market and run them down there, or their
Well,
leases.
So
look at Cross Border Group here in BC. So initially, he was exporting cars from Canada and then sitting them on a lot in Seattle. And he could title them, but he couldn't resell them for 30 days because of the laws. So then when he he factored that in so people could buy them as they landed, and they just had to wait 30 days to get them. And now he's changed the whole thing. And now he's like, well, I'll just set up a retail location and I'll sell them as I get them, basically.
Cool.
But yeah, he's importing millions a year in cars.
How long can we do this? And especially from Dave's perspective, like, because the trucks have affected you big, right? Like, how long can we do this? Get rid of all our inventory to a completely other country, and until we start seeing that affecting the use of like all the markets. Like, it's gone on longer than I thought it could at the pace it's gone on. And I'm just blown away that it's like, yeah, it's a pretty selfish business model, because we're emptying out our inventory. And it throws off the skew of the new to used and all kinds of things. So I don't know, like, just putting it out there. How much longer can we do this before it really affects us?
Well, I think you're going to have when you look at the problems going on right now with chips and shortages of new, I think used is going to be the most interesting game in the next 18 to 24 months. And the reason is basically just that there's a finite amount of used inventory and there's a massive amount of demand, and that demand's increasing, whether it's export or not. Dealers got to get really good at not only retaining customers through the sales cycle and service, but also, like, I need your car. Like, who do you know who's got a car? Like, you need to be buying cars at scale because you got to sell something. And if you can't get the new inventory and they can't build it, you really got to look for very creative ways to buy vehicles. Whether you sell them down south or sell them locally, you're going to need that inventory. And I think that's going to be the biggest battle in the next 18 to 24 months. Now, whether the government will get involved in trying to control that, who knows? But I doubt it. But, I think that there's definitely going to be a big change in used inventory. Those numbers are already increasing anyway.
Yeah, and I agree with that. So then, then it just makes it even more attractive, right? So it'll be interesting, I guess, to see how it goes. I was just curious what everybody's thoughts were.
But I have to say, Dave, you're a big used car guy, and you know this too. 10 years ago, right after the tsunami in Japan, and there was that plant that supplied 75% of the world with their chips, and everybody's going, oh no, used is going to go crazy. The exporting to the States is going to stop. We're going to keep them for our market here. Didn't happen. It just went down there in droves. In fact, back then it was even worse than now because you didn't have a 30-day quarantine. And I know a guy that had a huge operation just on the other side of the line here to change odometers. And literally cars were sitting at Seattle auction 24 hours after they left Canada, which included the odometer change. So, really, I don't know. The only time it's ever going to change is when we start getting a little bit more parity in the dollar. But then, when there's only about a 10-cent difference in the dollar or 10% difference.
And it goes the other way.
It goes the other way. Exactly. Except we don't pick up trucks and it goes the other way. It's all exotics.
Yeah. Well, right now, we have nobody that has negative equity, so it works really well. Getting people out of these trades, right?
Especially in Alberta.
Yeah.
But
you bought too much truck.
It's been a lifesaver.
You can go back. How far back do you want to go? In the 90s, it was like, what the heck are we going to do with all these used cars, all these leases and all these lease returns? And oh my goodness, like, this is going to be terrible. And nobody's financing long-term, and the F&I income has gone down the drain, and you're not getting the big reserves, you're not having the long-term financing, people aren't buying warranties, and the world was ending, and then all of a sudden leasing came to a screeching halt in the domestic world, and we all survived, and off we went, found something else. We went to 60-month financing, we went to 72-month financing, 84, 96. Is it going to have a detrimental effect? It already has for a long time. Somebody looks at a used vehicle and the payment's $500 a month and the new one's $520. They're going to buy the new one, hands down. Okay, and that's going to keep our new cars rolling. And we all talk about this, the chips and everything else. Yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem, and it's a problem getting inventory, and it's tough getting inventory. But I mean, a lot of guys really, really, really get rid of a lot of inventory last year, and are certainly in a better position this March than they were last March. You sell less cars for more gross. Is that a bad thing?
Your flooring's better.
You're selling more cars for more gross, and then that's all cyclical too. Now your salespeople are making more money, so you're able to retain better staff. You're able to hire better people. You're paying more money. There's more money for your charitable events, as you were talking, as to pay your mortgage. There's more money for all of these things when we're all making more money. And yeah, we're exporting vehicles, but like I said, you get to that point, it switches the other way, and we start importing vehicles. And I don't know. It's we've had stuff to worry about forever in the car business.
So what you're saying is we're like running backs. We're great at pivoting.
We're awesome at pivoting. We pivot every day. We pivot every deal. Every single deal you pivot. You're talking about dress code and this and how Mercedes does this and online marketing, and at the end of the day, we cater to our audience.
Yep.
Yep, 100%.
Play to the audience.
Whatever it is, whether it's how you dress, how you deliver a car, how you Zoom meeting, how you do a FaceTime delivery of a vehicle. Customer can sit in their car, or you can sit in your office. You can walk through the car and tell them how everything works. What's the difference between you sitting in the seat or you doing that? Nothing. There's just.
Okay, so I have a question. So 5 years ago, who would have thought that we'd have people selling cars with no pants on?
As long as they don't have a glass table.
Well, Jeff, you've always done stuff a little different, Jeff. So,
it's very funny. I mean, I've obviously never done that. It's never been a thing because I suffer from car ADD, and I don't mean to be snide about that situation with somebody, but boy, oh boy, you grow up looking for ups. And you're sitting there and you go, oh, look over there. And then you get up and you always want to make sure you're wearing pants.
I haven't had that problem.
So everybody, we try to keep this to an hour. So thank you very much. But before we continue, I just want to go over a couple of shows that we have coming up here. Next week, which many of you will appreciate here, we have the Old Dogs versus Young Guns show. And just to talk about the way they used to do it, we have 3 salespeople set to go here, which is Brandon Smith, who's actually a manager now in one of the Young Guns and Steel Chev in Halifax area. Our friend George Saraglu from Stouffville Toyotas coming on, and he's the old ones. And Marco Matanudo from Mercedes-Benz somewhere in Toronto as a young gun, and a couple other pretty cool people that are just waiting to double check their schedule, who are old people and young people. After that, the 15th is the Good About the Car Industry, and Stephen Granger, the author of that, will be joining us. And then we have the Sales Managers Show and Challenging Used Car Situations, used car show 3 coming up for the rest of the month. So Ian, any other further comments? Anybody else before we call her a morning, afternoon?
No, have yourself a great month. Thanks for tuning in. I know it's beginning of the month, so it's a little challenging, but I'm sure March will be great as well. And of course, if there's any comments, feedback, or thoughts on shows, we're always all ears on them.
Thanks, everybody. It was a very fun show today. No set guests, but some great guests.
Thanks, everybody.
Great, thank you.
Everyone.
Here's everybody. Have a good day.